So by the time you listen to this, it'll be a week from, well, not a week, but 10 days before Halloween. And I figured, why not do this on specifically the day that this animated short came out? And by the title, you see what it is. Now, I've talked about it before, and not in detail at times, but just gave my general thoughts. But there's, without no shadow of a doubt, that Moon over Minerva is probably one of the funniest and cute, very, I would say to an extent, Tex Avery-like shorts that Animaniacs has ever had, if not between Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. And I mean that sincerely. And what makes this short even more interesting than what it is the fact that, not only was it aired around Halloween time, because of course it has a theme of the guy that's in love with Minerva being a werewolf, basically a Fabio-like werewolf, but, technically, its production history is one that really is astonishing. It really is. Now, this is nothing new, obviously, in television, animation, or live action, or even with movies. But the production, history with this is that originally Meet Minerva was supposed to come out around this time, and Moon over Minerva was supposed to come out around the time Meet Minerva did. But because production schedules were a little wonky back then, and still are to an extent today, they had to basically switch things around and put Moon over Minerva first. And the timing, I guess, couldn't have worked out better for them, seeing as though this went on to not only put the character Minerva Mink on the map, but also basically solidify with her character that, anything was possible. Anything was, possible of happening and stuff like that. And that's what makes the character really interesting, in my opinion. Not just the character, but, the character herself, but also makes the short interesting as well. The fact that it's one of those shorts to where when one thing happens to one character, that same thing ends up happening to the other character. Like when Wilford melts and everything, he melts into a puddle, but he's still able to talk. So when Minerva does it, upon her second, meeting with Wilford's werewolf alter ego, she melts. But the difference between her and Wilford is that basically when she does it, he has to pick her up like a wet rag towel, like I've mentioned before, and wring her out to restore her to normal. Basically, he just, she melts to the ground, he picks her up, she drips a little bit, and he just wrings her out. And many people, even those that pose as Minerva online, because they want to act like her or pretend to her for a fan club on places like Facebook, described it basically as Minerva going into basically a deep sleep, going into take a nap, if you will. And that's essentially what it was. It was Minerva, taking a nap. And, and that's, kind of really interesting to learn about, to find out about, when you, look up the history of this and how some people, like fans, interpretate it. It's really interesting to see that, to see that little progression, if you will, by the fans kind of thinking, okay, she could have popped up at any time she wanted, like other characters that have done this before her. and not just Animaniacs, but in other shows. But yet it takes someone to reform her, because he basically goes into a deep sleep, it's like a coma or something like that. I'm not really sure, but just basically a deep sleep that it takes somebody else to wake her up. So overall, the episode is good. It's cute, especially the ending when when she's kissing him, and he turns back to normal from werewolf to himself. She's just like surprised, like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because she, at that point, did not put two and two together until that ending. And then when he tells her what she is, basically when Wilford tells her what he is, in reality, this kind of like, she's like, whoa, wait a minute. So you could be this guy every 30 days kind of deal. It's like, all of a sudden her eyes just light up like, oh my God, wait a minute. So I can see you every month, as this guy, as this form of yours. And he's like, yeah, basically, yeah. And the lesson learned for her and anybody else is good things are worth waiting for. Patience makes perfect. Or patience pays off, if you will. So overall, Moon Over Minerva, I thought was like I said, a very Tex Avery, very funny, Tex Avery inspired, cute Halloween. It was a perfectly timed Halloween episode or short in Animaniacs. There's no denying that. Despite the fact that originally, from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, it wasn't even meant to be the first Minerva cartoon. It was Meet Minerva was supposed to be the first cartoon, and not Moon Over Minerva. But still, in the end, very good little short. Even if unintentionally, great introduction to who Minerva is and what you could expect in her cartoons and such. And we kind of saw that reflected in her comic book appearances, which there were more of, and everything. So, yeah, I thought it was a good introduction piece. And again, even though unintentionally came out first before Meet Minerva, I thought it still did its job. And I highly recommend watching it over Halloween. I really do, because again, the timing of it when it got released couldn't have been better. So, let me know what your thoughts are, guys, on Moon Over Minerva. What were your thoughts when you first saw it? How did you feel about her kind of doing the same gags that Wilford did? Like, when she melted, what was your thoughts on the fact that, unlike him, when he did it, he had to pick her up and, basically reform her like she was a wet towel having to be dried out? What were your thoughts on that? How did you feel about it overall? And do you think, even unintentionally, the timing couldn't have been better for this to be basically her introduction episode instead of the original one? Let me know down below in the comment section. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat. As well, other premiere super thanks afterwards. You can also check me out at BW Rose's Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at Venmo at Brian-Warmer-2, Cash App at BWRoses98, Patreon.com/BWRoses. You can also check me out at my Teespring store and at BW Rose's Discussions, like I said, at all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at DeviantArt.com, so that's BVW1979. And at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get here on YouTube. But until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, I'll talk to you later.